Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy.
As a struggling musician, Atreus had seen his share of setbacks. Gigs that fell through, bands that imploded, and a string of bad luck that left him without a permanent home. The shelter provided a roof over his head, but it was far from ideal. Still, he clung to hope, believing his big break was just around the corner. The sound of raised voices pulled Atreus from his thoughts. He slowed his pace, peering down a narrow alley. In the shadows, he could make out the forms of two men looming over a smaller figure, a young woman. Her frightened cries pierced the night air. Without hesitation, Atreus sprinted towards the scene. "Hey!" he shouted, hoping to startle the attackers. "Leave her alone!" The men turned, momentarily distracted from their victim. One was tall and lanky, the other shorter but powerfully built. Both wore dark hoodies that obscured their features. "Mind your own business, pal," the taller one growled. Atreus planted himself between the men and the cowering woman. "I'm making it my business," he said, trying to keep his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Walk away now, and we'll forget this happened." The shorter man laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Looks like we got ourselves a hero, Jimmy. What do you say we teach him a lesson?" Before Atreus could react, a meaty fist connected with his jaw. He staggered back, tasting blood. The world spun as blow after blow rained down. He tried to fight back, but he was outnumbered and outmatched. As consciousness began to fade, Atreus caught a glimpse of flowing red hair and heard a woman's voice. Not the victim's, but someone else entirely. Then everything went black. Atreus awoke to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the antiseptic smell of a hospital room. His entire body ached and his left eye was swollen shut. He groaned, trying to piece together what had happened. "Oh, good, you're awake," a soft voice said. Atreus turned his head, wincing at the movement. A woman with striking red hair sat in a chair beside the bed. She wore a fashionable green blouse and dark jeans, her manicured nails tapping gently on the arm of the chair. "I'm Tiffany," she said with a smile. "I found you in that alley and called for help. The doctors say you're lucky, no permanent damage, but you took quite a beating." Memories of the attack flooded back. "The woman," Atreus croaked, his throat dry. "Is she okay?" Tiffany nodded. "She's fine, thanks to you. The police are looking for the men who did this." Atreus relaxed slightly, relieved that his intervention had at least helped someone. "How long have I been out?" "About 36 hours, Tiffany replied. "I've been checking in on you. I hope you don't mind, but I went through your wallet to find any emergency contacts." "There wasn't much there." Atreus looked away, embarrassed. His wallet contained little more than his ID and a few crumpled dollar bills. No credit cards, no photos of loved ones, just the meager possessions of a man who'd hit rock bottom. "Hey," Tiffany said gently, placing a hand on his arm. "No judgment here. We've all been through tough times. Listen, I own a boutique downtown. Once you're back on your feet, I could use some help around the shop. Stock work, deliveries, that sort of thing. If you're interested, that is." Atreus blinked in surprise. "You don't even know me," he said. Tiffany shrugged. "I know you risked your life to help a stranger. That tells me all I need to know about your character. Think about it, okay? No pressure." As she stood to leave, Atreus found himself nodding. "Thank you," he said softly. I'll think about it." 2 weeks later, Atreus stood outside enchanted attire. The name of Tiffany's boutique spelled out in elegant cursive above the door. His bruises had faded, but he still felt a twinge of pain in his ribs as he took a deep breath and pushed open the door. A bell chimed softly as he entered. The shop was a riot of color and texture. Racks of clothing in every hue imaginable, shelves lined with accessories, and mannequins modeling the latest fashions. Behind the counter stood Tiffany, her red hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She beamed when she saw him. "Atreus, you made it," she said, coming around to greet him. "How are you feeling?" "Better," he replied, still taking in the surroundings. "This is quite a place you have here." Tiffany laughed. "It's a bit overwhelming at first, I know, but you'll get used to it. Come on, I'll show you around and introduce you to my sisters." As if on cue, 2 women emerged from the back room. The first was tall and willowy, with pale blonde hair and ice blue eyes. The second was shorter, with warm brown skin and a mass of dark curls. Both wore outfits that looked like they'd stepped off a runway. "This is Celeste," Tiffany said, gesturing to the blonde. "And Marisol," indicating the curly-haired woman. "Girls, this is Atreus, our new helper." Celeste gave a cool nod while Marisol offered a friendly wave. "Welcome aboard," Marisol said. "Don't let Celeste intimidate you. She's a softie once you get to know her." Celeste rolled her eyes but didn't contradict her sister. Over the next few hours, Atreus was given a crash course in the workings of the boutique. He learned how to operate the register, where to find different sizes, and the basics of customer service. It was a far cry from his life as a musician, but he threw himself into the work, grateful for the opportunity. As the day wore on, Atreus couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the sisters. They moved with an almost otherworldly grace, and he occasionally caught snatches of conversation in a language he didn't recognize. More than once, he could have sworn he saw sparks dance at Tiffany's fingertips as she straightened a display. But each time he tried to get a closer look, one of the sisters would distract him with a new task or question. By closing time, Atreus was exhausted, but oddly exhilarated. "You did great today," Tiffany said as she locked up the shop. "Same time tomorrow?" Atreus nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I'll be here." As he walked back to the shelter that night, Atreus felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in months. Little did he know his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. The weeks flew by as Atreus settled into his new routine. He moved out of the shelter and into a small studio apartment above the boutique, using his earnings to slowly furnish the space. His guitar, rescued from a pawn shop, took pride of place in the corner. Though he still dreamed of making it as a musician, the steady work and sense of purpose he found at Enchanted Attire filled a void he hadn't realized was there. As he grew more comfortable around the sisters, Atreus began to notice more unusual occurrences. Clothes that seemed to mend themselves when no one was looking, customers leaving the shop with a dreamy, satisfied expression that seemed out of proportion to a simple retail transaction. And always that undercurrent of something magical. One evening, as Atreus was closing up shop, he overheard the sisters talking in hushed tones. "It's almost time," Celeste was saying. "The new moon approaches." "Are you sure about this?" Marisol asked, a note of concern in her voice. "It's a big step." "We've discussed this," Tiffany replied firmly. "He's ready. I can feel it." Atreus's curiosity got the better of him. He peered around the corner, only to find the sisters staring directly at him. Their eyes seemed to glow in the dim light of the shop. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop." Tiffany smiled, but there was a hint of something dangerous in her expression. "No need to apologize, Atreus. In fact, we were just talking about you." "About me?" Atreus felt a chill run down his spine. "What's going on?" The sisters exchanged glances. Finally, Celeste spoke. "We haven't been entirely truthful with you, Atreus. We're not ordinary women. We're something else." "We're witches," Marisol said bluntly, "and we think you have potential." Atreus's mind reeled. Witches? It sounded absurd, and yet it explained so much. The strange occurrences, the feeling of otherness that surrounded the sisters. "What do you mean, potential?" he asked cautiously. Tiffany stepped forward, her green eyes locked on his. "We believe you have the ability to join us, Atreus, to become something more than you are, but it requires a transformation, one that will change everything about your life." Atreus swallowed hard. "What kind of transformation?" "On the night of the new moon," Tiffany explained, We can perform a ritual that will turn you into a woman. Not just physically, but in every way. You'll have a new identity, new instincts, new abilities. It's a rebirth of sorts. Atreus's head spun. Become a woman? The idea was so foreign, so impossible that he almost laughed. But the serious expressions on the sisters' faces stopped him. "Why me?" he asked. "And why would I agree to something like that?" Marisol spoke up. "We've been watching you, Atreus. You have a kindness, a sensitivity that's rare. We think you'd thrive as one of us. And let's be honest, your life as a man hasn't exactly been a bed of roses, has it?" Atreus flinched at the blunt assessment. It was true. He'd struggled for years, never quite fitting in, never finding his place. But to give up his entire identity? "You don't have to decide right now," Tiffany said gently. "The new moon is in 3 days. Think it over. But know this, if you agree, you'll never be alone again. You'll have a family, a purpose, a chance to be part of something greater than yourself." With that, the sisters left, leaving Atreus alone with his thoughts. He climbed the stairs to his apartment in a daze, collapsing onto his bed. As he stared at the ceiling, his mind raced with possibilities and fears. Could he really leave behind everything he'd ever known? And if he did, who would he become? The next 3 days were a blur of confusion and internal debate for Atreus. He went through the motions at work, but his mind was elsewhere. The sisters didn't pressure him, but he could feel their eyes on him, waiting for his decision. On the night of the new moon, Atreus found himself standing outside the boutique long after closing. The streets were quiet, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of nearby trees. He took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The sisters were waiting for him, dressed in flowing robes of deep purple. The shop had been transformed, the racks of clothes pushed aside to create an open space in the center. Candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls. "You came," Tiffany said, a note of approval in her voice. Atreus nodded, his throat dry. I want to do this," he said. "I don't fully understand why, but it feels right." Celeste stepped forward, holding a chalice filled with a swirling, iridescent liquid. "Drink this," she said. "It will begin the transformation." With shaking hands, Atreus took the chalice. He hesitated for a moment, then brought it to his lips and drank deeply. The liquid was cool and sweet, with an undertone of something wild and ancient. As soon as he finished, the sisters began to chant in that strange language he'd heard snippets of before. The air around him seemed to thicken, shimmering with an unseen energy. Atreus felt a tingling sensation spread through his body, starting in his core and radiating outward. The tingling intensified, becoming almost painful. Atreus gasped, dropping to his knees. His skin felt like it was on fire, his bones shifting and reshaping themselves. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Through the haze of sensation, Atreus was dimly aware of the sisters continuing their chant, their voices rising and falling in an otherworldly melody. The candlelight seemed to grow brighter, pulsing in time with the rhythm of the spell. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The chanting stopped, and the oppressive energy in the air dissipated. Atreus blinked, his vision blurry. As his eyes focused, he caught sight of his reflection in a full-length mirror across the room. But it wasn't Atreus staring back at him. Instead, he saw a woman with long chestnut hair and wide green eyes. Her features were delicate but strong, with high cheekbones and full lips. The purple robe he'd been wearing now draped over a body he'd never possessed before. "Welcome, sister," Tiffany said softly. "What shall we call you?" The woman in the mirror opened her mouth, and a melodious voice that was both familiar and strange answered, "Allison. My name is Allison." The days that followed were a whirlwind of discovery for Allison. Every sensation felt new and intense. The brush of fabric against her skin, the weight of her hair as it swayed with each movement, the way her center of gravity had shifted. She marveled at the strength and flexibility of her new body, even as she adjusted to its unfamiliar proportions. Tiffany, Celeste, and Marisol were patient teachers, guiding Allison through the basics of life as a woman. They showed her how to apply makeup, teaching her the difference between daytime and evening looks. Allison spent hours experimenting with different styles, amazed at how a swipe of lipstick or a touch of eyeshadow could transform her appearance. Clothing was another adventure entirely. Allison had never paid much attention to fashion as a Atreus, but now she found herself fascinated by the variety of textures, cuts, and styles available to her. She reveled in the feeling of a silk blouse against her skin, the way a well-fitted pair of jeans hugged her new curves. "Remember," Marisol said as they sorted through the boutique's inventory, "fashion is about expressing yourself. Don't be afraid to try new things." Allison nodded, holding up an emerald green dress with a plunging neckline. "What about this?" she asked, her voice still carrying a hint of uncertainty. Celeste smiled approvingly. "Perfect for your coloring. Go try it on." As Allison slipped the dress over her head, she caught sight of herself in the dressing room mirror. The fabric clung to her body in all the right places, accentuating her figure in a way that was both flattering and empowering. For a moment, she hardly recognized herself, not because she looked different, but because she had never seen herself look so confident. "Well?" Tiffany called from outside. "Let's see it." Allison stepped out, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The sisters' eyes widened in appreciation. "Stunning," Marisol breathed. "You were born to wear that dress." Allison blushed, unused to such compliments. But as she turned to examine herself from different angles, she had to admit they were right. She looked good, really good. "I'll take it," she said, surprising herself with the decisiveness in her voice. As the days turned into weeks, Allison found herself settling into her new life with an ease that sometimes startled her. She still thought of Atreus, of course, the life she'd left behind, the struggles and dreams that had defined her former self. But increasingly, those memories felt like they belonged to someone else, a character in a story she'd once read. Working in the boutique took on new meaning as Allison applied her growing knowledge of fashion and style. She found she had a knack for helping customers find the perfect outfit, drawing on her own experiences to offer advice and encouragement. One afternoon, a nervous-looking woman came into the shop, fidgeting with the hem of her oversized sweater. Allison approached her with a warm smile. "Can I help you find something?" she asked. The woman bit her lip. I have a job interview tomorrow. I need something professional, but..." She trailed off, gesturing vaguely at herself. Allison nodded understandingly. "But you want to feel confident and comfortable, right? Let's see what we can do." Over the next hour, Allison guided the woman through various options, offering suggestions and gentle encouragement. They finally settled on a tailored navy blazer paired with a soft cream-colored blouse and well-fitted trousers. As the woman examined herself in the mirror, her entire demeanor changed. She stood straighter, a small smile playing at her lips. "I look beautiful," Allison finished for her. "And capable. You're going to nail that interview." The woman turned to Allison, her eyes shining. "Thank you," she said softly. "You have no idea how much this means to me." As the customer left, Tiffany appeared at Allison's side. "Well done," she said, squeezing Allison's shoulder. "You're really coming into your own." Allison beamed, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment that went beyond simply making a sale. She was helping people in her own way. It might not be saving the world, but if she could make someone feel more confident and empowered, wasn't that its own kind of magic? As Allison grew more comfortable in her new identity, the sisters began to introduce her to the magical aspects of their lives. It started small, learning to sense the energy in crystals and herbs, understanding the significance of lunar cycles, practicing simple meditation techniques to focus her intent. Magic isn't about waving a wand and making things happen, Celeste explained one evening as they sat in the back room of the shop. It's about aligning yourself with the natural energies of the world and learning to guide them. Allison nodded, turning a smooth rose quartz over in her hand. She could feel a subtle warmth emanating from the stone, a gentle pulse that seemed to resonate with her own heartbeat. I think I'm starting to understand, she said. It's like everything is connected, and we're just learning to tap into those connections. Marisol grinned. Exactly! You're a natural at this, Allie. The nickname made Allison smile. It was another small sign of how she'd been accepted into this strange, wonderful family. As the weeks passed, Allison's magical education continued. She learned to craft simple charms and talismans, infusing them with intent to bring luck or protection. She studied the properties of different herbs and crystals, creating blends for various purposes, to promote restful sleep, to boost confidence, to attract love. One day, as Allison was arranging a display of handmade jewelry, a middle-aged woman entered the shop. She looked tired and drawn, with dark circles under her eyes and a slump to her shoulders. Can I help you find something? Allison asked, approaching the woman with a gentle smile. The woman sighed. I don't know. My daughter recommended this place. She said you might have something to help with stress. I've been having trouble sleeping lately. Allison nodded sympathetically. I think we might have just the thing. Follow me. She led the woman to a small section of the store dedicated to wellness products. With careful consideration, Allison selected a few items: a small pouch of lavender and chamomile tea, a smooth piece of amethyst, and a roll-on perfume oil blend she'd created herself. The tea will help you relax before bed, Allison explained. Keep the amethyst by your bedside. It promotes peaceful sleep and can help with nightmares. And this, she held up the perfume oil, is a special blend I made. Just a dab on your wrists and temples before bed. It has lavender for relaxation, bergamot to ease anxiety, and a touch of vanilla for comfort. The woman looked skeptical but grateful. I'll try anything at this point, she said with a weak laugh. As Allison rang up the purchase, she focused her intent, silently imbuing the items with an extra dose of calming energy. It wasn't a spell, exactly, but a concentrated wish for peace and rest. Let me know how it works out, Allison said as she handed over the bag. And remember, the most important ingredient is belief. Trust that you can and will rest easy. The woman nodded, offering a small but genuine smile as she left. Later that evening, as Allison was closing up shop, Tiffany appeared at her side. That was some impressive work earlier, she said. I could feel the energy you put into those items. Allison blushed slightly. I just wanted to help, she said. She looked so tired and stressed. Tiffany nodded approvingly. That's the heart of what we do, Allie. We use our gifts to help others, to bring a little more light and ease into the world. You're really starting to understand that. As they finished locking up, Allison felt a warm glow of pride and belonging. She was part of something special, something that went beyond the day-to-day operations of a boutique. She was learning to harness the magic that had always existed in the world, to channel it in ways that could make a real difference in people's lives. That night, as Allison prepared for bed in her cozy apartment above the shop, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The woman who looked back at her was confident, capable, and glowing with an inner light that had nothing to do with makeup or fashion. She was Allison, witch in training, sister and friend, and for the first time in a long time, maybe ever, she felt truly, completely at home in her own skin. As the months passed, Allison's magical abilities grew stronger and her confidence blossomed. She became an integral part of the boutique, not just as a salesperson, but as a creator in her own right. Her handcrafted charms and custom-blended perfumes became sought-after items, with customers swearing by their effectiveness. One particular challenge Allison faced was learning to navigate the complexities of menstruation. The first time she experienced cramps and mood swings, it caught her completely off guard. I never realized it could be this intense, she groaned, curled up on the couch in the back room of the shop. Marisol chuckled sympathetically, handing her a steaming mug of herbal tea. Welcome to the joys of womanhood, sister. But don't worry, we've got some tricks up our sleeves. Over the next few days, Allison learned various magical and practical methods for easing menstrual discomfort. She created a special charm bag filled with moonstone and rose quartz to balance hormones, and perfected a soothing balm infused with essential oils to ease cramps. You know, Celeste remarked as they worked together one afternoon, your unique perspective gives you an edge in creating these remedies. You understand the discomfort on a personal level now, but you also remember what it was like to not experience it. It makes your magic more empathetic. Allison nodded thoughtfully. It was true. Her past as Atreus, while feeling increasingly distant, did provide her with a unique viewpoint. She found herself drawing on that duality more and more in her magical practice, blending traditionally masculine and feminine energies to create powerful, balanced spells. As Allison's confidence grew, so did her willingness to explore her new identity in all its facets. She began to date, navigating the world of romantic relationships from a completely new perspective. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Her first date was with a kind-hearted graphic designer named Michael, who she met when he came into the shop looking for a gift for his sister. Allison spent hours agonizing over what to wear, finally settling on a flowy floral dress that made her feel both pretty and comfortable. As she sat across from Michael at a cozy Italian restaurant, Allison marveled at the differences in how she experienced attraction and connection. The physical pull was there, certainly. She found herself admiring the way Michael's shirt hugged his broad shoulders, the warmth of his smile. But there was also a new emotional depth to her responses, a heightened awareness of the subtle interplay of conversation and body language. "You seem a million miles away," Michael said with a gentle laugh, pulling Allison from her reverie. "Am I boring you?" Allison blushed, shaking her head. "Not at all. I'm sorry, I was just reflecting on how nice this is, how different it feels from—" She trailed off, realizing she couldn't exactly explain the true nature of her thoughts. Michael tilted his head curiously. "Different from what?" Allison took a sip of wine, buying herself a moment to think. "From what I expected," she said finally. "Dating can be so awkward sometimes, but this feels natural." Michael's smile widened. "I know exactly what you mean. There's something special about you, Allison. I felt it the moment we met." As the evening progressed, Allison found herself relaxing more and more. She laughed at Michael's jokes, shared stories about her work at the boutique, carefully edited to exclude the magical elements, and felt a warm glow of attraction building between them. When Michael walked her to her door at the end of the night, Allison felt a flutter of nervous excitement. Would he kiss her? Did she want him to? As if reading her thoughts, Michael leaned in slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away if she wanted. Instead, Allison closed the distance between them, pressing her lips softly against his. The kiss was gentle and sweet, sending a shiver of pleasure down Allison's spine. When they parted, both were slightly breathless. "Wow," Michael said softly. "That was—" "Yeah," Allison agreed, a shy smile playing at her lips. "It really was." As she watched Michael drive away, Allison touched her fingers to her lips, still tingling from the kiss. It had been a magical evening in the most mundane sense. No spells or charms needed, just the simple magic of human connection. Upstairs in her apartment, Allison kicked off her heels and flopped onto her bed, her mind replaying the events of the evening. She felt giddy and alive in a way she'd never experienced as Atreus. It wasn't just the physical aspects of the date, though those were certainly new and exciting. It was the way she'd been able to open up emotionally, to connect on a deeper level. As she drifted off to sleep, Allison felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. Grateful for Tiffany and her sisters, for the new life they'd given her, and for the endless possibilities that stretched out before her. She was Allison, witch, woman, and so much more than she'd ever dreamed possible. As the seasons changed and Allison's first year in her new life drew to a close, she found herself reflecting on the incredible journey she'd undertaken. The boutique was thriving. Her magical abilities were growing stronger by the day, and she had formed deep, meaningful relationships with Tiffany, Celeste, and Marisol. One evening, as the sisters closed up shop, Tiffany pulled Allison aside. "We have something special planned for tonight," she said with a mysterious smile. "Consider it a celebration of your transformation and all you've accomplished." Intrigued, Allison followed the sisters to the rooftop of the building. She gasped as she took in the scene before her. Twinkling fairy lights were strung overhead, creating a magical canopy. A table was set with an elegant dinner for 4, complete with crystal glasses and flickering candles. Soft music played from hidden speakers, adding to the enchanted atmosphere. "This is beautiful," Allison breathed, taking in the sight. "But what's the occasion?" Celeste stepped forward, her usually cool demeanor softened by a warm smile. "It's been exactly 1 year since you became Allison," she explained. "We wanted to honor that and to let you know how proud we are of you." Marisol nodded enthusiastically. "You've come so far, Allie. You're not just our sister in magic now. You're family in every sense of the word." Tears pricked at Allison's eyes as the weight of their words sank in. She'd known, of course, that the sisters cared for her, but to hear it stated so plainly, to see the effort they'd put into celebrating her, touched her deeply. As they sat down to dinner, Tiffany raised her glass in a toast. "To Allison," she said, her green eyes shining, "who had the courage to embrace a new life and who has brought so much light and love into ours." The others echoed the toast, and Allison felt a surge of emotion so strong it nearly overwhelmed her. "I don't know what to say," she said softly. "You've given me so much, a home, a purpose, a family. I can never thank you enough." "You don't need to thank us," Marisol said, reaching out to squeeze Allison's hand. "You've enriched our lives just as much as we've enriched yours. That's what true sisterhood is all about." As they ate and talked, sharing memories and laughter, Allison marveled at how far she'd come. A year ago, she'd been Atreus, lost, alone, struggling to find his place in the world. Now she was Allison, confident, loved, and an integral part of something magical. Later, as the stars twinkled overhead and the candles burned low, Tiffany presented Allison with a small, intricately carved wooden box. "This is from all of us," she said, "a symbol of your journey and your place in our coven." With trembling hands, Allison opened the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of deep purple velvet, was a pendant. It was a silver triquetra, 3 interlocking crescents forming a triangle. In the center, a small, brilliantly cut emerald gleamed. "The triquetra represents the triple goddess, maiden, mother, and crone," Celeste explained. "But it also symbolizes the 3 of us, and now you. We're all connected, our energies intertwined." "And the emerald?" Allison asked, running her finger over the smooth stone. Marisol smiled. "It's your birthstone, not the day you were born as Atreus, but the day you were reborn as Allison. It represents growth, balance, and the heart chakra, all things you've embraced in your new life." Allison carefully lifted the pendant from the box, feeling a subtle vibration of energy as it touched her skin. Tiffany stepped behind her, gently fastening the chain around her neck. As the pendant settled against her chest, Allison felt a wave of warmth and belonging wash over her. "It's perfect," she whispered, touching the pendant reverently. "Thank you for everything." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.